Good morning. Welcome to The Difference Makers. This is your radio host, Ron Malhotra. The Difference Makers is a show where we talk about people that are making a difference out there by doing something that is slightly different in terms of doing work that is somehow adding value to other people or communities. So these are people that are not just driven by self-interest, but they're driven by a bigger dream, a bigger vision, the need to make a social impact. Today I'm very honored to have on the show Sara Mitchell. Sara, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Ron.
Oh, that's great. Sara's from Bizbuddyhub, and I have to admit, when I spoke to Sara, Sara mentioned what she did, and I was fascinated. But I thought, you know what, I haven't fully got my head around this, so I've invited Sara on the show, and so Sara, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what is Bizbuddyhub? What is it that you're actually doing?
Well, Bizbuddyhub is really just about the outer metro areas, and I'm based out in the growth area of the West, out in Point Cook. And one of the things that I've realized as time's gone on in outer metro is that work and community is a bit of a mismatch. And what we're trying to achieve with Bizbuddyhub is look at solutions and look at a better way for the future of work and future of community. We know that we've got 70% of our population commuting out, spending 2 to 4 hours of their day trying to get to their job, which pays their mortgage to keep a roof over their head. These are traditionally young families. And then we've also got about 30% of our demographic that is a micro business or a freelancer that's working and is quite disconnected from other people. So we're looking at creating a fit for work environment in our local space based on the co-working model, which basically allows some of those corporate commuters to basically work in their own postcode, whether it's 2 to 5 days a week, and also create a collaborative environment for small business to work together and access some more macro opportunities. So we're really big on the social impact and social and economic KPIs from a local level. And that's really where it came from, the need to solve a problem within the community.
Sara, that was a very seamless explanation. I mean, that was wonderful the way you just explained that. So why? I mean, where is this coming from? What was? Is there a catalyst? One day, did you just wake up in the morning and decided that this is what you wanted to do?
Probably not. A whole lot of different catalysts maybe in life. I did come from being a migrant 12 years ago, and I had come from an environment of startup and scale up of business back in another world, in another country. I had a role where I was working with the community and more specifically with farmers and people on the land. So that's always been something I've been quite passionate about. And having had the experience as a migrant and in small business in Australia, I sort of came to understand some of the challenges of small business, and some of the things that were quite difficult. And having come from a franchise model as well, I've seen a lot of things which actually do not favor small business.
What sort of challenges are we talking about?
I guess what it is, a lot of franchise models from my perspective are targeting people who might be quite vulnerable in terms of wanting a ready-made sort of model that will work, but not necessarily having a deep understanding of how that model is going to, what it's going to require to work. And I've seen a lot of people really struggle and lose everything. And I think those models are generally targeted at migrants coming in who, obviously need a job, but are not necessarily being able to access the job market.
So the cashed up migrants.
Cashed up migrants, and
or
also
the ones that have the ability
corporate
to.
refugees
Right.
who've been churned out of their corporate job
Yeah.
and potentially are not in a position to find another role. Yeah.
I have to say, on a personal level, I agree with you. I have a firm belief that if you are the kind of person that wants to get out of your job and you want to buy a business, and you haven't got any business experience, I will typically, if, in my job, we get clients coming in and saying, hey, I'm thinking of buying this particular franchise. And I say, why are you thinking of doing that? And they said, well, because I'd like to be my own boss, or I'm not happy where I am. And I just think that those are the wrong reasons to be buying a franchise. And you're actually right, because the failure rate in business, in franchising especially, is very high, especially if you haven't run a couple of businesses prior to running a franchise. Because in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is no substitute for rolling up the sleeves and putting in some blood, sweat and tears and getting that valuable business experience before you buy a ready-made business. Because there's really no such thing as a system that will just generate a lot of cash for you.
Absolutely. And look, I would consider myself quite a seasoned person in terms of business and startups and scale-ups. We bought a small business when we came into the country in 2004. This was a small cafe that manufactured cookies, so it had a wholesaling element to it and the front of house cafe. And I can say from my experience of having, rolled out, mega businesses and then having to work on that business and in that business was extremely difficult. So I have a lot of empathy for little guys. But I think this theme for me has always been there. I went on to work with IGA, which is independent retailers, and again, very strong engagement with community. And it was only recently I had a bit of a brush with breast cancer about 3 years ago. And it was only really when I sort of stopped and had time to think and perhaps just reframed things a little bit in my own mind. I came out of that, the other side of that, with a strong sense of what is my purpose. And I, had a few tries at different things in a startup agency and a co-working environment that was working for not-for-profits, working with franchisees and Aussie Farmers Direct, but it wasn't quite the right fit for me. But all of those experiences actually helped me to really cement for me what was important. And for me, community, local, little guys working on their businesses, and how do we make things better, were all very common themes. And it was only really when I stopped and started just working with the community that I lived in, and I had lived in for 10 years, that it just became obvious to me what my purpose was.
What a wonderful story. So literally all of your experiences, everything that you've gone through in your life, was preparing you in a way to fulfilling your purpose.
Absolutely.
And so there was a time in your life when you've gone, let me just look at everything that I'm doing. I'm not feeling passionate or purposeful or meaning. I don't feel like my life is lacking meaning. And you've at some point looked back and connected the dots. Is that what's happened?
Exactly that. And I was looking for what is the meaning. I've done all of these things. We've taken a company public. I've moved from a country where the political and economic situation really crashed around us. We've made this movement to a new country and sort of had to literally start from scratch. And then you've been through these sort of mega life-changing sort of things, and it has to mean something. But I guess what it sort of taught me is you don't always know what it means at the time, but that life experience certainly does give you all of that the elements that you need to draw from, and probably the resilience as well, to be able to back yourself and know I'm 100% right on this. I'm asking the right questions. I'm getting the right resonance with what I'm saying, and I've perhaps built that the resilience and the credibility to be able to do this.
And that's what I love. I love the human story behind a business initiative, because they're the businesses that succeed. And we hear about all these businesses that fail. And my opinion is that if you run a business or you start a business or any type of venture, and your primary motivation is money, and it's not coming up from a place of passion, it's not coming from your heart, you have a very low likelihood of success. Would you agree with that statement?
I would 100% agree. I think everything, I get really worried when I see where the world's at. There's a lot of talking about elevator pitches and how to sort of, attend this and you'll know how to get all your leads and what have you. But I don't ever see people saying, what is your why? What problem are you trying to solve? why are you doing this? And I think the why is really, really important. And I think the world is starting to change. There's certainly a tilt towards purpose-driven business
And it
and
makes
solving
sense.
a problem.
Yeah, because I don't think we're just here to make a living. I think we're here to make a
Absolutely not.
difference.
Absolutely.
Hence why we call it the difference makers. I love your passion. I
Thank you.
have, this is the first time I've actually met you in person, but I could feel your passion through everything that you do, your emails, a little bit of correspondence that we've had. And so it didn't take me long to be convinced that you were the right person for this show. So congratulations
Oh, thank you.
on being able to identify your purpose and doing something that very few people actually get to do, which is to align the work and your career to your purpose and passion.
Well, thank you,
Wonderful.
Ron.
So tell me, are you able to share some tips or insights into what, for the people out there that are going, I would love to be like Sara. It's all easy for Sara to say that, it's fantastic, the world's a rosy place now, that I've found my passion. And there are people out there that want to find their passion, but struggle with it. It's not an easy thing. Some people
Yeah.
connect the dots, some people don't connect the dots. Is there any tips that you can provide to people that are listening on what they can do to connect the dots?
Yes, I think it's a good thing to listen to that inner voice. I totally understand that you might be in different places in your life and needs and wants. I mean, that hierarchy of needs and where you are. But I think it's a really important thing to ask yourself the questions and do a little bit of a head check and a heart check along the way and make sure that your values are aligned with what you're doing and really sort of take that into account. And sometimes you need to stop what you're doing a little bit just to sort of step back and have a look. It's not always easy to do it when you're in the minute and you're sort of chasing your tail just to sort of keep things on. But stopping what you're doing, just doing a little bit of a head check and a heart check, making sure you're really clear on what your values are. And if you really do have something that's niggling you inside about something that you would like to change, really ask what it is that you're trying to change and start asking questions. Things that Rome doesn't get built in a day, but asking yourself, what problem can I solve, is really where I came from with this. And once I sort of took my head out of it and let my heart go and just start listening rather than overthinking things, but listening and really resonating with what was going on, that is what helped me.
I love that. What problem can I solve? And pick a problem that is maybe consistent with your strengths.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. That's really key. That's really, really key. What problem can I solve? And listen to yourself.
That's right. And listen to others. Listen to what people are saying. One of the things that I found quite interesting out in Point Cook, we've got a very engaged in social community on Facebook. And there's a lot of people up there, having rants about traffic and having rants about things that aren't there in terms of infrastructure. And sometimes just reframing that into, well, what is the solution? Rather than what is the negative, how could we, change that into a positive and try and be a solution-based thinker. For me, that's quite easy. I see a puzzle and I want to solve it. But that's a good thing to have, because then it always gives you the opportunity to think about it in a different way.
And by doing that, you're demonstrating true leadership. Now, you maybe didn't go out there to become a leader. Maybe
No,
that
I
wasn't
didn't.
your intent.
That
was
wasn't
it?
my intention.
And isn't
no.
it interesting, though, that the work that you're doing, so you've identified a problem, and then you've gone, how do I come up with a solution? And as you said, a very key point that you made earlier was don't overthink it.
Yep.
Right? So I'll get you to elaborate on that, but I just
Yep.
wanted to quickly mention that what I see here is a person that has just taken some initiative. And by doing that, you're a leader, because you have, even though leadership is not about designations. It's not about how many people are working under you. It's really about taking some initiative and trying to make things better for others. Is that right? That's what you've
Absolutely. Yep.
done. That's wonderful. Let's take a short break and we'll come back in a few minutes.
Great.
Welcome back to the Difference Makers. This is your radio host, Ron Malhotra. Today I have the incredible Sara Mitchell in the studio with me, and we've just been talking about how Sara identified a need and how she identified her passion, and she combined the two and came up with some initiatives to do something about a problem that she could relate with, but also a problem that was affecting her community. And one of the things that Sara just mentioned, if you were listening to the conversation earlier, Sara mentioned that it's sometimes you've got to just stop what you're doing, and you've got to go inside, and you've got to reflect on what it is that you really want. And you mentioned something about wants and needs, which was really interesting. And one of the things that you said to me, which I really want to delve deeper into, is don't overthink.
Yeah.
Because we know that when meaning is lacking in people's lives, no matter how good a living they may be making, we know that people don't always feel satisfied and purposeful. But so many people will say, oh, I've been thinking about it, and it's just not coming to me, but I've got bills, and I've got this, and I've got that. So I want you to cover two things for me. I want you to first talk about what do you mean by not overthinking, and then two, I want you to take me through that point in your life when you decided to make the transition, and how you dealt with all of those practical implications of how am I going to pay the bills, how am I going to raise the kids, where's the money going to come from? How did you deal with that? So let's start with what you mean by not overthinking.
I think not overthinking for me was probably a challenge, because I expected myself to have the answers, and it was only when I made it, really simplified it, and stopped doing what I was doing and said, okay, what is the biggest issue for me? I would like to work local, but I've been living in this community for 10 years. I don't know anybody in this community. So how long
had you been in the country at that point?
12 years in total,
Okay.
but 10 years within the Point Cook community.
Right.
And it was only when I said, okay, I need to stop doing what I'm doing and stop trying to have the answer to everything and not have the answer, and just engage. If the issue for me is belonging, then let me join the dots with something, that is happening in the community. And that was community initiatives. I mean, we had things going on in the community. There was a very active anti-graffiti campaign, and we had the sound walls, and I made friends with a very community conscious person and just started getting involved in those initiatives. We had our little pirate ship playground. It was an iconic pirate ship that burnt down in the community, and a year later it actually wasn't going to be replaced because it was seen as a problem, and it was going to be replaced with a statue rather than a playground. So there was a lot of sentiment within the community about what that was, but if we actually know what the sentiment is, we need to do the right thing. So I just got involved in the advocacy and the doing part, and listened to what was going on around me, and then thought about solutions. And then it was really easy for me to join the dots between that, what I'm good at, and that, what I'm passionate about, and that, what the world, or in my case, the community, needs. And that started to naturally form, and I just from that reframed it and asked more questions to check that I was on the right course with sentiment around me, and that sort of naturally engaged people and found that sort of organic engagement with what I was doing, and it gave me the confidence to go, well, yeah, I can do this.
And can I share my observation about that? You went out there, and you were driven by the sole purpose of adding value or solving a problem for others. That yes, there was a part of you that was also thinking, what's in it for me, which is to do work that's congruent with your passion. But your main catalyst, and I just want to point something out here which is really, really interesting, and everything that I've learned about leadership just confirms this for me, that in order to become a true leader, it is not so much about you as it is about what you can do for others. And that's the place that you came from.
Yep.
And therefore, you have naturally evolved. Your whole personality, your energy, is that of a very strong leader. But that's not what you set out to do. You didn't say, I just want to lead
exactly.
and become this because it was never
No,
ego-based, was it?
no.
It was coming from a place of serving.
Yep.
But what a wonderful story when you can serve through your own passion, which makes it... I mean, I can't think of a better place to be in life than to merge your passion with your desire to serve. How incredible. And very few people ever get there, right? So you have, through your experience and your insights, something amazing. I hope you see that.
Oh, well, it feels amazing to me. I wake up every day with my heart and my head fully aligned, and I have the energy to do what I do because I'm totally into what I'm doing.
You're
and
aligned.
I know what it is.
And I wasn't planning on saying any of this to you because I didn't know a lot of this about you. As I see your story come to life, I can see now what has happened. But you have incredible amount of value that you can deliver to people that are in where you were maybe a few years ago before you found that connection.
Exactly.
And so this is why I want you to go a little bit deeper into how people do that, and then also want to talk about the work that you're doing and what is it actually doing for the community out there.
Well, I think before we sort of go into the work, one of the things I do want to point out, I wasn't always driven by the need to serve. A lot of what I was like in earlier times when we took our company public and what have you was either the practical things and having enough money to retire on, but also wanting the finer things in life, not just for myself, but for my family. And I guess what I've learned through this, and probably, a little bit of the cancer journey sort of taught me as well, is that stuff doesn't make you happy. And it didn't matter how many handbags and shoes or what car I drove. That actually doesn't give you that real solid feeling of success that you think it would. And it's only now that I'm doing what I'm doing, and money is so secondary to it. It's much more, the social KPIs are so much more important to me. Can we turn an economy around? Can we make that strong social impact? That for me is very, very fulfilling. The connection with people is very fulfilling. Belonging to a community is very fulfilling. And I think for a lot of people, what's resonating with them, even at the basis level, is that feeling of belonging. That we can actually make a change and we do belong to each other and we are a community. And sadly, there are a lot of communities that are very disparate and disconnected, and a lot of people who are struggling with that. So I get fed by that sense of belonging very much as well.
And thank you for being honest about because the people can get a bit skeptical and go, oh yeah, you're out there to change the world. But none of us are born like that, and we're not conditioned that way. In the beginning, we're all about ourselves.
Exactly.
And some of us in time realize that that's not what life is all about, which is the journey that you went through. So what is the difference in how you feel now compared to how you felt then?
Well, I think there was a time where you're trying to reward yourself with material things and go, well, if I can do this and wear a certain type of clothing, or drive a certain type of car and mix with a certain type of person and travel in a certain type of way, I'm going to feel like I've arrived and everything will be good. Well, I have had that in my life, and in different elements. I've been through quite a rocky up and down environment, and I found that those things didn't make me happy. In fact, I was probably at my most unfulfilled and most unhappy when I sort of arrived at a certain place thinking that was going to be the nirvana, and it actually wasn't for me.
And there's nothing wrong in having those things, except that what you're saying is
they
don't make that your primary purpose in life.
Yep.
Let that be a consequence of you following your passion.
Exactly.
But is that practical? I mean, some people might say, oh yeah, it'd be great to do something that I love, but it doesn't pay me.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in that space, and I think the world is changing, and I think we've got to be smart, and we've got to go add that which I can be paid for into that element of all of the things, that which the world needs, and that what I'm good at, and that's what I can get paid for and make a living. Everybody does need to make a living, but there's a way of with that entrepreneurial spirit, you might have an idea and a passion, but you probably need to just work through it a little bit more to apply the practical elements to it.
And would it be true to state that if you're doing something that's aligned with your passion and purpose, that you're more likely to persist through challenges
Absolutely.
than if you were doing something just for the money?
Absolutely.
You're more likely to quit,
I
aren't you?
think so. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing out there and how it's affecting people.
Okay, so the interesting thing about what we're doing and the problem we're trying to do is the serendipity of how you meet other people who are part of that journey is quite amazing. So I've met some wonderful champions and mentors along the way, and some really good advice that I got along the way from one of my mentors was to hold this really, really lightly. And
Repeat that.
hold the idea of what I'm trying to do really lightly.
Really
And-
lightly.
And that was interesting to me because I am quite a gung-ho kind of person, and 0 to 100. But I really understand that in terms of listening and sharing and keeping it very open to where it needs to go in terms of the solution. So when I first started thinking about it, I was thinking in sort of very black and white terms of a co-working space, much like you see in the cities with desks and meeting rooms and fit for purpose. But one of the things, the evolution of this is starting to have that conversation, is realizing that it looks a little bit different in the outer metro areas. It's not just desks and computers, it's makers, it's people doing all sorts of different things. There's people in the arts and creative fields. You need studios. So what we've actually come up with is quite a interesting ecosystem. It's quite eclectic, which is interesting, but compounds the complexity. But how we started, which is also based on some very good advice from a mentor of mine, was don't wait for the space, build the community. And what we've done is we actually started pop-up style, and we just basically we opened it up to the community to come and co-work with us in random places. For example, Master's furniture section was one of the pop-ups we did. Cafes that were quiet during the day, just different places. And this was really interesting, but it also got our name out there, and people started talking about, what are these people doing? We were sort of using social media, and we're here today, and come and join us. But people loved the concept of it. And we built a really strong grassroots community. One of the things that happened sort of late last year is my middle daughter finally flew the coop, and I weaned her off the credit card, and we had an empty nester household. So I just, okay, well, home base can become our sort of co-working HQ, if you like. So we've had that element of being able to offer the members only accountability sessions, doing a little bit of the social stuff, as well as just
So you
being
opened
open
your
for
home.
business. So I opened up my home.
Wow. Okay.
For
And nothing like
co-working.
that existed at the time. So
No,
this was
no.
so it's not like the circumstances were conducive to what you wanted to do.
Absolutely not. In fact, totally opposite. We're really challenged in the growth area that we are. It's all about housing. We do have, supermarkets and things around us, but we don't necessarily have very good Wi-Fi in the areas. All the sort of commercial spaces are sort of based where the parking is to get the train and whatever. So it's really difficult to get out to the commercial sort of working spaces. So, we've found a way of doing what we need to do in the here and now. So we do a combination of pop-up and the sort of members only stuff, which I'm doing out of the home base. And we've just been making sure that we've been building our stakeholder support and champions around us in local government, in council and what have you, and sort of trying to work and get a really shared vision on this. We do have a vision for our ultimate ecosystem, which is a TAFE that's been sitting empty for 2 years in our local area, which has the right sort of infrastructure in terms of the cable for the Wi-Fi and parking and accessibility, etc. We're a little way off from getting that to really, turn the key on that, but it's not stopping us doing what we need to do in the interim, building the community, adding value to the community as we are, and just keep on doing what we're doing and just building
So, you know,
as
for
we
me,
go.
what the most incredible takeaway from all of this is that you set out on a mission and there was no circumstances supporting what you were doing. So you went and created those circumstances.
Exactly.
This is what you've done. And
Yep.
that's the hallmark of a leader, right? And anyone can do this.
Absolutely.
But most of the times what happens is people see an opportunity to carry out what they want to do, but the first thing that they do is they see the hurdles, which inadvertently, no matter what you do, there's going to be hurdles.
Absolutely.
But do you
Yep.
agree with the fact that most people tend to focus more on the hurdles than the opportunity, and therefore they get stuck?
I would agree with that. And look, that's been my experience even in the corporate world is, you know, you'll come up with a solution and everybody will say, well, good luck with that, rather than, and my brain always goes, well, if it's a problem, there's also a solution in there somewhere. And for me, this is a people problem and it's a people solution. And, you know, I obviously don't have all of the answers, but I surround myself with amazing people. And what that allows us to do is be very creative because we've got all kinds of skill sets and influences that we can utilize. And we just don't realize how powerful we are when we start to share and collaborate. And I think that is the magical word, is that we space. We are doing something.
I love
This is-
that. I love
As
that.
much as you say it's leadership, I've got a whole lot of leaders and advocates around me who are leaders in their own right too.
But that's a true leader. A true
Yeah.
leader doesn't make followers, they make more leaders. And that's what you're
Exactly.
doing.
Yeah.
And they're all leaders, of course. And collaboration is a fantastic way to come up with the resources.
Exactly. So that's what I think is that sort of magic key. Once you can let go of the fear of holding on to your little piece and share and collaborate and just be really open to how it's going to go and hold it lightly, I think that's where you can really start to see the magic.
Another
Yeah.
thing I loved that you said, Sarah, was you don't need to have all the answers. I want to come back. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, I want you to elaborate on what you meant by that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Difference Makers. This is your radio host, Ron Malhotra. I've just been talking to Sara Mitchell about some of the initiatives that she's taking and some of the leadership that she's been demonstrating in regards to pursuing her passion and adding value to the community. Welcome back on the show.
Thank you.
So one of the things you said earlier was when you started out on this mission, you didn't worry too much about having all the answers. You were just driven by the need to go and make a change, to improve the state of things that were out there. And you didn't really let the fact that you didn't have all the answers deter you from taking that first step. Explain that to me.
Well, I guess when you frame it back as a question, as a solution, and you've got an element of it, you get feedback and you get a resonance with what you're saying, and you also get other people's input into the problem. And for me, that was really helpful because it helped to do the research, and people would share a lot of their energy and their learnings in the space and what they'd done before. I've made connections with community advocates who were sort of on the right page 10 years ago, who've done an awful lot of work. So you could kind of tell where you can kind of take things and where some of the walls were likely to be, and you could strategize around that. The research was there, but obviously, you know, the time that it takes to do things. But when you've got many people working on a project and everybody sharing a vision, you actually have a lot of the people who are naturally drawn to help creating the solution. And to be honest, we still don't have all of the answers, but I think we're evolving at such a rate that we're getting to the stage where other stakeholders are starting to invest time and energy into the thought process around this as well. So I'm really confident that, you know, the final solution will be a very good one.
And I think that people naturally gravitate towards a person who takes initiative, and there's natural support that you would start to draw. You didn't need, you maybe had no guarantees when you started this
Absolutely.
that anyone was going to
No.
come and support you. So you took a bit of a risk.
Yes, absolutely.
You took a risk. You You did you believe in yourself when you went out there?
I believed in myself once I'd asked the questions and I got the resounding sort of response to those questions of what about if we did it this way? Would that work? And people responded positively to that. And I think everything that you do is going to have, you might get that element right and you might be off track in something else. So you're always adapting and making things fit and learning and trying stuff. I mean, not every element of what we've tried while we're doing pop-up and whatever works for everybody. So that it's a constant learning curve.
Constant course correction.
Exactly.
There's no perfect solution.
Exactly.
And that's why you need to be passionate about what you're doing, so that
Exactly.
you don't give up and you persist.
And don't try and be perfect about everything. Don't
No.
go, well, I'm waiting to perfect my website, or I'm waiting for this to happen, or I'm waiting for that. Sometimes you've just got to go and you've got to cause and correct all through the process.
So that's wonderful. So you're a role model. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. You may not see yourself as one, but I see you as one. Who's your role model?
I have many, many role models. The one thing I am fascinated about in life are people who make a difference and are passionate about things. So I'm always learning and looking. I have people in my day-to-day who are my role models. I surround myself with interesting people.
Give us some names.
One of my very good role models is Tim Moorburg. He was the founder of NAB Village. He's off doing his PhD with the future of work at University for Sydney. He's been very, very important to me. I've got many community advocates that are role models to me. One for me is Walter Villangonzalo. He's the Wyndham Person of the Year, Citizen of the Year. He was a visionary in the space way before it became the thing to do. And I just find that all of us are just open to collaboration and sharing.
Yep.
And, it doesn't matter who gets the glory. Nobody's interested in that. We're trying to get stuff done. We are the game changers. We are trying to make a social impact.
And behind every story like that, behind every person that's making a change, is
Yep.
just someone average that went through some setbacks and challenges and decided to have a vision that was bigger than themselves.
Exactly.
Really, that's what it is. Because so many people think, oh, I can't be that person, but you can.
No,
Anyone
you can.
be that person.
You can be that person on any level. And again, what problem can I solve? Where
Wonderful
can I
question.
be of value?
Wonderful. And when you ask that question, you eventually find the answers.
Exactly.
Tell me a favorite book.
Oh, I have many favorite books. I haven't had much time to read. Eat, Pray, Love.
What's it called?
Eat, Pray, Love.
Right, Eat, Pray, Love.
And that was a woman's journey, which is a movie out there as well. But just finding yourself is a really important element.
Wonderful. Now, if anyone from the audience wants to find out more about you or the work that you're doing, or personally wants to connect with you, give us some details.
Really easy to find me on Facebook, Sara Mitchell. We do have a Bizbuddyhub Facebook page. We've also got
Can we
the
spell
website.
that? I'll get you to spell that.
BizBuddyhub. So there's a Facebook page and there's a website, which is www.bizbuddyhub.com.au. It's got our vision on there. It's got where we're at in the here and now, and it's really, really easy to join. If anybody's interested, please get in touch with me. As you can tell, I like talking to people. There's lots of info up there as well. And we'd love to hear from people who are interested because, as I said, we're not just doing this for the West. We're collaborating across the board with other outer metro areas.
Wonderful. Good story. A lot of passion. You're on a mission. And I wish you all the best. Before we wrap up the show, I just want you to either share one of your favorite quotes or one piece of advice or tip that you'd like to share with the people listening in.
Wow. I think the best piece of advice I've ever got, because it's something I don't do naturally well, is listen. We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that order. I think you can only be learning when you're actually listening. And it's a very valuable piece of advice that I try and remember for myself. And I think there's a lot of us who are very gung-ho and want to get things done. just take that time, even if it's listening to yourself.
Sara Mitchell, it was a pleasure to have you on the radio show. I wish you all the best with your mission, and we look forward to hearing about all your successes. Thank you.
Thank you.